Hello, we're glad to be with you once again as we're talking about the Jezebel spirit and identifying those narcissists in your life. I'm Dr. Pierre, Samaan, and it's wonderful being back with you. We're in part 21 and we're talking about episode 58, somewhere in there, but we're in this number 6 series of escaping that trauma bond that is so harsh, so difficult for many people that are trapped in it. And you may know someone, you may be someone, or you may run into someone in the future that this may be helpful for them, and please pass it along to help them. In this series, we've been talking about not only the characteristics of the Jezebel spirit and the narcissistic spirit in combination and how it progresses along that continuum of mild to severe over here, where you have the malignant narcissist, the pure Jezebel spirit over here in this end, and how when it progresses, eventually you get to that midway point where guilt and remorse and bad things, really bad things begin to happen over here in this area. And this is where there's a loss of conscience, and there's the sociopath and the psychopath, and then eventually into that malignant narcissist category or Jezebel category. While we want to stay away from all this over here, these people over here, they're not terrible, they're not awful. They've got characteristics that they need to work on, and if they work hard on them, it'll get better. But if they don't work on it, it tends to progress. Now, many people will stop in that midway point, and they may not go beyond that. But those that do go beyond that, they tend to be the real traumatizers. They tend to be the true abusers that are sadistic, and they enjoy what they're doing in controlling and in harming others. You want to stay away from that. I certainly do. I don't like being around them. When they come into counseling, I have to switch my thinking into God thinking and see them through God's eyes, not through my eyes. And usually they're not going to come in unless they're forced to come in by the courts or by a situation that perhaps they're very afraid of themselves, and they're feeling they're going to lose control, and they need some help at that moment, which may only be 1 session, 2 sessions. Then suddenly they're back to their norm again, and off they go. They don't need counseling at those points. They don't need the help. Sometimes they'll come in because they're trying to manipulate a partner, a friend, a company, and in the manipulating, they're using the counseling to get their way. And so sometimes we have to be careful about that, be as wise as we can, and perhaps not even accept someone that we may consider is trying to do that, trying to purposely manipulate the counseling to take advantage of someone else or something else. Well, the trauma bond we've spoken of several times, but just a quick reminder, trauma bonding often with a Jezebel narcissist occurs due to repetitive abuse at reinforcing intervals of love, trust, and betrayal, creating strong bonds of emotions not quickly broken. Those emotions are so strong, it takes a while to identify them, but it also takes a while to be able to do anything about it. And the longer you're stuck in a trauma bond, the more difficult it is to get out of it, the more effort it takes. So in talking about escaping trauma bonds or breaking free from a trauma bond, thinking about symbolism helps. And many times, we think of a symbol and it represents something, and then it's easier to think of that symbol, to think about what it represents and to carry it through. Well, we're thinking about a house, the symbol of a house. When we think of a house in our minds, it has many rooms. Sometimes I might even think of a hotel with many rooms in it. But a house is symbolic of so many things, because in using a house imagery to represent your life, it becomes easier to see how it can depict your identity. In fact, in dream analysis, The house is often interpreted as part of your life, part of who you are, your personality, your soul. And very often, and besides not just a house, but a car can also represent that in dreams. A house or a car. The car's moving along, you're moving along, who's in the car and so on. But the house is most often seen in types of dreams. Remodeling your house in a dream can represent renovations that you need to make on yourself. So it's not a stretch to think about a house remodeling when you're beginning your journey of change. You're taking your house with you through life, no matter your age, relationships, circumstances. Therefore, a well-built home is a comfortable place to reside, giving you many attributes and satisfaction, security, and significance. Think of your home today. What does that represent to you? Are you happy in your home? Are you not happy? If you're not happy, what are the parts of the home that you would like to change or improve? And if you have already undergone some remodeling in your home, did it make you feel better? Did it make you feel like the house was better? Did you feel more secure, more satisfied, or more significant as a result of your remodeling your actual house? Well, the mind isn't much different. If we think symbolically of the house when we're trying to make such significant changes in our life, the house needs major updating. It needs modifying to be reflective of what we want it to be, because when it's out of sorts, when it's not right, when our body isn't right, our mind isn't right, well, that's more reflective of instability, intense negative emotions, and frequently shifting and traumatized life. We don't want that. We don't want to stay in that for very long. The current layout of your house identity is no longer meeting your needs. If you're to escape the trauma bonds, you'll need to remodel your identity to fit your personal vision of how your home should look and feel. It may also be important to recognize that because your house is a representation of you, the house can't simply be demolished. You just can't tear it all down completely. There's a foundation there, and on that foundation, you can't remove it. So there's work that needs to be done in renovating the house. If it's major, well, you're going to have to do major renovating. The house can't simply be demolished and rebuilt. That would represent your death and rebirth, which can only happen when we pass on to be with God in our heavenly home. Some remodeling, however, only requires small areas of touch-up, your identity or lifestyle. I remodel my house in my mind. I'm remodeling me every day. I'm doing a little improvement. I'm working on myself. I'm learning a little more. I read books or I take classes. I have to get CEUs, continued education units. So I'm constantly progressing along, remodeling my house, making me better and better. There's a lot of room for me to get better, but as I'm working towards it, I'm feeling better along the way. And that's what we want. We want to remodel our identities, that if we're working on it, we're feeling better along the way. Even if we're not completely done, even if there's so much to do, we can't seem to see the end result, but we're feeling better about that little corner that we just fixed up in our identity. It's important to recognize that our heavenly home will come on that day when we're with the Lord, but He wants us to be happy and to have a type of heavenly home here on earth. So some remodeling requires that small touch-up, as I mentioned. However, once you begin, you may recognize that other parts of your house identity will require a whole house renovation. Here are just a few characteristics or examples of what your home can actually represent in your identity or in a dream, let's say. Personality, love, belief system, faith, confidence, attitudes, past, present, and future, intellect, subconscious, unconscious, repressed, suppressed memories, safety, significance, satisfaction, basic needs, values, priorities, maturing mindset, need for improvements, transitioning, fears, emotions, personal changes, personal space, abandonment, old ways, new directions, loneliness. Whew, that's a mouthful, and there's even more. You get the idea. There's so much there that you can work on in remodeling and in improving your life. Those characteristics are only some of what our house identity can represent. When dealing with a life of severe abuse and trauma, whole house renovation will take a great deal of time. So, you just can't tear it all down, as I've mentioned earlier. So you're going to have to work on the pieces. You're going to have to remodel this room or this corner or that corner. You're going to have to make those little adjustments along the way until you reach that entire house renovation, that whole house renovation that you desire. Because it takes energy to do that. It takes strength to do that. And you just can't do it all at once. For some, their strength of will is broken and only working in selective pieces to enhance survival. In these cases, best to undertake your whole house renovation one room at a time. Basically, how are you going to do it all at once? You try to do it all at once, and what happens? You get knocked down, powerless and helpless. So where and how does one begin the process of escaping the Jezebel narcissist trauma bonds? As I've already said, the first step is to align your mind and heart to be in agreement to change, representing the modeling, the remodeling. If only the mind and heart says, I'm ready, you'll be prone to becoming easily overwhelmed in whatever venture you're trying to do, whatever remodel you're trying to make, whatever change you're trying to enhance or make better or happen. We don't want you to feel even more powerless and helpless, because that's what's going to happen. You'll feel more powerless and helpless if you don't have the energy, if you don't have the fortitude, if you don't have what you need to carry all that out all at once. And very few people do have that, to do it all at once. Piecemeal, little at a time. If when you're doing it, you feel the trauma, you feel upset, you feel overwhelmed, what's going to happen? You're going to fall back into that Jezebel narcissistic trauma bond trap. Now I've relapsed back into it. Now what can I do? And now it's harder to get out. And that happens over and over again for many people. There's a similar issue. I guess we could compare it to alcoholism or even drug addiction, but particularly with alcoholism, the research says that a typical alcoholic will, and even a drug addict, so it's combined, will relapse on the average of 9 times before they maintain their recovery. Average 9 times before maintaining their recovery. It's such a strong force in them, medically and otherwise. And if they don't have their mind and their heart set on the same thing, and if they're not working on it, what's going to happen? They're going to relapse the minute there's stress, the minute there's something coming against them. Back they go to their drug or their drinking. Not much different for the victim of a trauma bond. If your mind and your heart are not together in the willingness to go forward and make these adjustments, then what's going to happen? Well, the minute there's some force exerted against you, the minute there's pushback, if only the mind is involved, it's not enough. If only the heart is involved, it's not enough. You won't be able to withstand the pushback. You need both the heart and the mind, and especially you need not to be alone in doing it. You need God's help. So the best way to have the mind and heart in agreement is to recognize that unaided, you're powerless to affect inner change, and you're powerless to affect the change around you. You need God's help by surrendering your will, not to your abuser, but to God. Well, what are the empowering truths about all this? In Jesus Christ, the Messiah, we can place our troubles on His shoulders and lighten our load. We're no longer alone. We now have that helper to take care of things that we can't take care of, to handle details that we can't handle, to exert power that we don't have. He's there to help us. But it takes the mind and the heart change to be able to be committed to putting that on His shoulders and then receiving back what He has to give you. In Jesus Christ the Messiah, we can find peace and harmony by letting go of our broken down ego, allowing God to renovate our house. Jesus said this in Matthew 11:28-30, and I'm reading from the Amplified Version. He said, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavily burdened by religious rituals that provide no peace, and I'll give you rest, refreshing your souls with salvation. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, following me as my disciple." That's important. A lot of people think about it. They may follow Him, they may accept Him up here, not down here. Some people may do it down here, not up here. It needs to be in both places, and when it's in both places, you're actually following Him as His disciple. "For I am gentle and humble in heart, and you'll find rest, renewal, blessed quiet, or peace for your souls. For my yoke," Jesus' yoke, "is easy to bear, and my burden is light." The day I accepted Christ into my life, the night, it was in the evening, it was a big change in me, just instantly. It was one of those experiences that many people might talk about. Not everybody has those kinds of experiences, but I did. But it was a lightening of the load. It was like, wow, something just lifted off, and now there's a lighter change that came upon me at that moment, feeling lighter, feeling, well, I guess we could say new, almost an instant remodeling that occurred in me and in most people who accept the Lord into their lives, who make that ego change, because that ego oftentimes gets in the way. "For I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength," Philippians 4:13. If you're having to do a trauma bond remodeling in your life, you can do everything, anything through Christ, because He'll give you the strength to do that, to carry it through. We're going to talk some more about this remodeling and the next step to think about in this change, in this escaping or breaking trauma bonds. I hope it'll be helpful for you. If you got something out of this today, please check the like button or the bell and you'll get notified. If you are on our mailing list on the newsletter, at our website. You'll be getting a newsletter with the PDF of this entire episode, along with the referral to the YouTube link in the newsletter that you can pass along to others. I'd like to remind you that New Horizons Institute of Counseling, we're for healing, peace, and harmony. God bless. We'll see you next time. Bye.